Your Creative Push, episode 108.
Never give up. The amount of time you put into something is the amount of time you're going to get out of it.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Jacob Dhein. Jacob is a painter from San Francisco whose paintings capture the modern world with a nostalgic nature of the past. He works across multiple disciplines, including figurative, landscape, and plein air painting, and his talent is founded in his desire to teach others as he also continues to learn himself. Jacob, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you got to the point you are at today in your artistic career.
I guess I started out doing artwork just kind of like everybody else as a kid, with crayons. And, it's kind of like the typical bio that you read about an artist. They like to play with crayons and things like that. And then, about middle school, I started actually taking some art courses and things like that and really got into it in middle school. And, I liked it a lot, but I didn't know if in middle school, you don't know what you're going to do and things like that. So, and then after middle school, I kind of thought, I'm not going to make a living at it. So I kind of got into sciences and things like that and physical education. And I just, happened to take an art course when I was in college once, and I just remember the feeling. It just felt so right. And ever since, I became an art major and took a lot of sculpture classes and painting courses and things like that. And then after I graduated with my BFA, I did some bartending on the side still, and did portrait commissions for a while. And, there's just something missing in my artwork yet. So I decided to pursue a master's program and came out to California and San Francisco and started my master's, and haven't looked back since, I guess.
You mentioned that there was, something missing. Do you still feel like there is something missing? Is that something that you've kind of mastered?
Oh, well, I always think there's something missing. If I knew if everything was there, there wouldn't be something for me to strive for to become better. But yeah, it's much more complete now. I'm much more confident in my work as I do it and things like that. So yeah, there's going to be always something missing. That's the way I look at it. If everything was perfect, you probably wouldn't want to really do it anymore because you just mastered it and it's just easy. Art doesn't come easy to me, and I doubt it comes easy to many people. It just takes time and things like that, time and practice. So
Yeah, time and practice, like anything. How about for somebody listening that feels like they have something missing? Would you suggest going back to school, or how can they find what it is that's missing in their art?
Oh, there's lots of ways. I mean, it depends at what level they're at. But definitely school's great. If you're gonna go with schools, I mean, I would definitely pursue a school that interests you. Look at the instructors or the professors' work. Read reviews about the school and things like that. So you know that you're going into something that you're gonna like. Just because a school says that they're the top art school, it doesn't mean it's gonna work for you. So what I did, I researched the instructors at the Academy of Art. I liked their work. I researched the student work too and the alumni work to see what that looked like. And I really, really enjoyed a lot of the student work and the alumni work. So, that's how I kind of chose my school for my master's program. But other ways are, I mean, just workshops with professional artists. You can work, if you get into certain workshops, you can learn in a week what some people learn in a year, just reading books and taking, little classes here and there. But some professional artists, their workshops are amazing. I remember once I took a Daniel Gerhardt's workshop after my undergrad, and it was just amazing, the amount of information I learned in 1 week. It was almost, I don't know how to say it, a lot of it, I learned a lot more than my whole undergrad.
Hmm.
So it first in certain areas like color temperatures and edge control and just certain things like that. He's really good at teaching. Whereas in my undergrad, a lot of the teachers took a more contemporary approach to painting, where they just kind of gave you paint and said paint what you kind of feel, and without any foundations or anything like that. So getting those foundations in there really really helps you, I think, regardless of what style of art that you're going to do, whether it be painting or sculpture or even music. You have to have the basic foundations to create something beautiful, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, as we said before, it's about putting in the time and the effort, but being able to take a course like that, it's like a cheat code almost. It's like you can, skip ahead and make the time and effort that you put into it that much more valuable.
Yeah, so basically, for all the years, it took him to learn all those things, he's teaching you everything within a week, and he's not hiding anything. I think, maybe some artists don't have workshops, maybe because maybe they're just not comfortable teaching people, or they're just afraid they don't want other people to paint like them. But regardless of, who you teach and if they're inspired by you, they might have a little similarity, if with one or two paintings. But if they have a large body of work, like 30 paintings, it's going to start to branch off and look quite a bit different. But another way, people can learn too is just, if you're past the beginner stage and you're in the intermediate stage of, art, you can actually start teaching people at a beginner level. And I think, that's a good way to learn too. I learned from my students and things like that. I learned what not to do sometimes. And, a lot of times you see some things that they just do spontaneously, and you're just like, wow, that's a great idea. So you can pull inspiration from your students too, I think.
Yeah, I think like you said, one of the important things about learning is teaching. It's like learning a little bit and then teaching it. It helps you to learn more, and then it just encourages you to have that kind of communication and, figure things out together as well.
Yes, definitely.
So, do you do sculpture anymore, or is that something that you've
I've
somewhat
I,
left behind?
I've been thinking about this for quite a while, and I think this next year I'm going to actually start. After I graduated with my BFA, I think I started one little bust. That was it, and I never finished it. And I haven't done sculpture, let's see, it'd be almost 10 years now.
Hmm.
So, but I'd like to get back into it. It's a little bit different than painting, um, the process and everything. But the finished product, it's still beautiful. It's just, I really got into painting, and sculpture's maybe a little bit harder, to make money at. I had an instructor in my undergrad that told me, he couldn't pronounce my name right, so he called me Jack, and he's Chinese, and he's like, Jack. He's just like, if you want to be a professional artist, he says, uh, you probably won't make it as a sculptor. He's like, you need to be a painter. He's like, painting is the Cadillac of the art world. So, ever since, I kind of, wanted to master painting. And if I was painting and sculpting, I could be good probably at both, but a master of neither maybe. So I took the route of just basically drawing and painting, and kind of just stuck to that. And now that I'm at maybe a little bit of a higher level, I feel I can take some time out of my week to maybe sculpt every now and then. So.
Yeah, and I would say that you are at a very, very high level with your painting. What would you say is your favorite type of painting? Because you have wonderful figurative paintings, as well as your plein airs are amazing as well. what do you prefer the most?
Oh, it all depends on my mood, I guess. Sometimes I like painting cityscapes. Overall, I would say the figure I connect with a little bit more. But plein air painting is exhilarating. I mean, it's so hard. You have to work with the elements, and you just never know what's going to happen. Everything's changing. And the success rate for a successful painting when you're out in the field isn't as high as if you were in the studio where you can plan out everything. So when you actually get a really good painting, when you're plein air painting, it's just you have this feeling of gratification and like you accomplish something amazing because you only have about 2 hours to finish that painting before the light changes too much, where the scene looks totally different and everything.
There's this painting that I was looking at on your website of a cityscape that it's like raining and it's like very beautifully done. There's like buses and cars in there. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
I'm guessing, is it the big blue one, maybe?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I know.
Was that a plein air one or is that
No, 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 that's
okay?
studio. So most all the cityscapes that are on my website are going to be from photos. I've done a couple plein airs in the city. It's not as easy to finish a cityscape because there's so much information.
Too much movement.
Yeah, and especially, if it's raining out, you have to put up an umbrella, and if you have an umbrella up, and San Francisco is always windy, your easel's going to go flying. So it's not as easy as you might think to paint in the rain, unless you can find an overhang somewhere where you can set
Mhm.
up underneath there. I'd love to, paint in the rain in the city. It's kind of hard, and the vantage points for most of my cityscapes are kind of the middle of the road most of the time. So it's kind of hard to set up in the middle of traffic. So
You should though. One day you should just set it up right in the middle of the street.
oh,
That
there's a neat place in San Francisco up by Grace Cathedral on Taylor Street where you can actually set up in the middle of one of the roads because they have like I don't know, like a little fenced off part for half the road. So you can walk up behind that and set up almost exactly in the middle of the road, and you got a really beautiful vantage point looking south in San Francisco.
very cool.
Yeah.
That yeah, I guess like the rain. If you were doing a plein air in the rain in the middle of the city, that's like the Cadillac of plein air painting. So
Yeah, I'm not that advanced yet. I'm sure some people probably have done it, but not me yet. So I don't really see too many people in the city painting in San Francisco besides my friends and I, which we go out. So San Francisco, maybe down by the Fisherman's Wharf, there's more people that maybe paint there. Or if you go towards Carmel, you see a lot of people outdoor painters, but generally not so much in the city.
oh, so do you know Sergio Lopez?
I don't know him. I know of him. I've seen his one of his shows over. I believe it's at the Modern Eating Gallery, and I think this was about. I would guess it was before I graduated, so it had to have been a little over 3 years ago, or around three
Oh, cool.
years ago. But yeah, I've heard of him, but I've never met him. I mean, I show at some of the same galleries as him and everything, and I really like his work and everything.
Yeah, he was on the show before too.
Mm.
So we'll have to connect you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
So, do you have any things that initially held you back from being creative, like resistances, or maybe they still kind of linger and you still have to deal with them?
Well, the first thing that really held me back was just myself, and that was
Mm.
in middle school. I was pretty good at art, and my mom and my aunt were really, really pushing me to, stay in the arts and maybe become an artist. And I just didn't think it was feasible. And I was a teenager, and when someone tells you to do something when you're a teenager, you kind of rebel and do something else. So I think that was the initial thing that held me back. And then, later on in life, when I got back into artwork, it was a couple years after I graduated with my undergrad degree, and I was still working in a bar, and I wasn't doing much of my own work, just besides portrait commissions. So it was all commission based work when I did paint. So, it was kind of, I don't know how to explain it, not a very creative time of my life. And I guess I was drinking a lot then. And my brother came back to Wisconsin and seen me and talked to my mom and told my mom I was drinking too much and stuff. So I ended up actually quitting the bar and moving back in with my parents and just decided to do art full time. And I got a job at a culture center teaching plein air workshops and figure drawing classes and things like that. And that's when it started. And I did that for about a year, and that was when I noticed there was still something missing from my work. And then I came out to San Francisco to the Academy of Art to study with some of the instructors out here. And then, besides that, I haven't really looked back. It's just it's been progressing really nicely. The biggest change was probably after I got my MFA. I got a real boost of a confidence because social media started noticing me on Facebook and things like that. I had changed my style, my painting style, a little bit after I graduated, and I got noticed, I think, for that. And galleries started contacting me from all over the country and things like that. So it gives you a big boost of confidence, because people like your work, the galleries like your work. When a gallery contacts you, they want to sell your work, versus if you just submit your portfolio to the gallery, they might accept you, but they might not be really into your work. So that was probably the biggest jump in confidence that I had was, after I graduated with that MFA program. But there's always times when, things are going to hold you back. Critics, like people saying things about your work. It does really hit you hard sometimes, if someone just, they're like, oh, well, your work looks like so-and-so's and this looks like so-and-so, you're copying him. And then, there's times when, I haven't even seen the other artists. So, it's just something that all artists, I think, have to deal with, is the critic side of their artwork.
Yeah, and do you have any advice for dealing with a negative feedback, or a comment that a comment like that isn't intended to be a helpful one?
I would
how do you deal
say
with that?
you just gotta keep going forward and just keep painting, and you're gonna get past it. I know it's probably going to hurt the person for a little while, and it might make them self-conscious a little bit about their work, but your work's just going to keep evolving if you keep working at it, and it's going to keep changing, and eventually you're not going to even look anything like that other artist that someone said you look like, because my work, it just keeps evolving, and I just keep trying new techniques and things like that. I love painting in different styles. I don't think I have a definite style. I like painting traditionally, sometimes with a more representational or realistic look to it. Other times I like to paint more abstract. I love abstract painting. I'm not an abstract painter, but I'm thinking about maybe starting a series of abstract paintings too. I just say, just keep plugging forward. And don't let those comments really bug you.
Yeah, just keep on like painting through it almost, and feel free to develop new styles and see where that kind of takes you as well.
Yeah, exactly. You can start off looking at someone's style and then integrate that into your work. And if you keep painting more and more and more, it's still going to always develop. It's still always going to have your signature in it. Put it that way. There's very few people that can mimic a style exactly. You have to be a pretty darn good painter to mimic someone's work exactly. And if you're that good, you don't need to mimic that style. It's the way I think of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have like a worst moment or a story about like a hardest time with specifically with dealing with creativity and the struggles involved with it?
Hmm. The worst, huh? Um, I would say it was, when my brother had came back from California and visited me, and I was drinking a lot and things like that, and doing the portrait commissions, and I was barely doing artwork at all, just for when I got those commissions, and that was, probably the worst moment in my art life where I just didn't do much work, and I was basically working 50 some hours in a bar and then just doing those portrait commissions. And, working in a bar, it gets stressful and it's tiring. And it's the type of bar that there's a lot of drinking. With me behind the bar, I drink too. So, the next day I'd wake up and I wouldn't feel good. So it's not like I did my own work. So that was probably the worst part of my life and my art career. And then, it just kind of took an intervention from my family. They sat me down and talked to me and said, you're ruining your life here. You need to get out of the bar and be more creative and explore the arts.
Absolutely. And I've been there too for a period of time where you're just completely creatively dull. Like it's like there's nothing coming out and maybe you just start drinking because of that. That starts affecting your creativity too. Like you can't get out of the dull because of that. And as you start drinking, you're thinking that I'm getting this surge of creativity, but then you don't actually do anything from it. I've been in that cycle before, and it's tough to deal with, and it's tough to get out of. So I can definitely relate.
Yeah, definitely. So that's, probably the worst moment definitely was around that time. So,
Do you have a best moment then, or most kind of creative triumphant moment?
yeah, it was kind of, I guess, a year after I graduated my MFA program, which would be about a year and a half ago in November, when I just started doing some nudes and things like that. And I just got all these emails from different galleries and things that wanted to represent me. Had one from Paris, one in Denver, one in New York City. I mean, all the great cities. So that just gives you this huge boost of confidence. So I guess that would be the biggest thing. Just hearing these great galleries contact me and say they love my work and they want to show my work and try to sell it. So I guess that would be probably the most triumphant creative moment that I've felt. I've never, each time I complete a painting, there's a moment of triumph. If I like it, sometimes I don't like it, so it's not really a moment of triumph. But not everything's going to turn out that you work on, especially when you're doing experimental processes and things like that.
Absolutely. So it's looking for those small victories along the way as well.
Oh yeah.
And completing something is I agree. It's like the number one thing you can do. It's hard to do, especially if you aren't used to it. But when you can kind of complete something and look at it and be like, "Wow, I did it," that's pretty addicting, and you want to just do it again.
Yeah, I don't know if as long as the paintings are in my studio, I don't know if they're ever completed until they get shipped out. But they're usually at 98% finished. So I had that instructor in my undergrad who always said, there's never a moment where you can't go back into an old painting and fix things.
Yeah, but that can get dangerous too, though, because then I guess, like you said, you have to get it out of the studio so that you don't have that option anymore. But sometimes, you can kind of linger on a project before moving on.
Yeah, as an artist evolves and their styles change, I guess if you go back into work from years back, you might just totally change, the feeling of the painting if you change it too much.
Art has always been kind of a part of your life. What would you say that art and creativity brings to your life?
Oh, I have the greatest job in the world. I don't know how to explain it. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. I look at a lot of people that have 9 to 5 jobs where they go in and they do the same thing day in and day out. I don't know if I could do that. I mean, I could do it if I had to, I guess. But right now, because I teach at the academy and it gives me a lot of free time to paint. Um, I just really could not see myself doing anything else. It's so gratifying. I'm my own boss, although I do have deadlines where I have to get things finished. But I get to paint what I want, and I get to paint like I can put my own feelings into my painting from day to day. My schedule is really lax, so I paint till it probably gets dark out usually, and then I'll relax at night and maybe do some design things in Photoshop and stuff like that. And then I go to bed, sleep until the sun comes up, and I just wake up. I don't usually set an alarm or anything, and I just get up and walk over to the studio. Well, my studio is right across from my bed, so it's not very far. And, I can work on my paintings right when I get out of bed, so it's just great.
That's amazing, man. And yeah, that's the goal, I guess, is to be able to wake up and just get right to it, you know?
Mhm.
Do you have a greatest inspiration?
I guess my undergrad professor Lee Hu was probably my greatest inspiration. He was the one I quoted about the paintings are the Cadillac of the art world. He was a workaholic, you could say. He was a full-time professor at UW Oshkosh, but then he would find time to paint, 50 hours a week and raise his family too. And he was battling cancer for about 10 years and still found time, to paint. And every time I go back to Wisconsin and I'd be traveling over to Oshkosh from my parents' house, I'd call up, and regardless of where he was in his treatment and things like that, or how weak he was, he'd always invite me over and talk with me for hours about artwork. And he'd show me the artists that were selling good, and then he'd say, Jack, he's like, I want you to go in this direction here. you know and even though at times I didn't take his advice to go in that direction, he'd still, the direction that I was in at that time, he'd still show me other artists and talk about their work and why their work was successful, to help me along. So, but I'd have to say he was, my greatest inspiration. Just, the most friendly guy, very talented artist. His name wasn't real big in the United States, but in China he's very well known. He's collected in museums over there and everything. So,
Very cool. And we'll put a link to his stuff as well in our show notes page, so people can check him out as well.
mm-hmm. Okay.
Do you have a favorite book or YouTube clip or anything else that you draw inspiration from, and that maybe we could too?
I guess, but the greatest inspiration book that I've ever read was a book about Antonio Mancini. It's called 19th Century Italian Master. Um, it's really hard to get now. It's really expensive on Amazon, but it's about his life, and it's so amazing because it talks about his struggles from after he got out of art school till when he was, in his probably late 60s was when he finally, became set on his feet, so to speak. But it talks about his trials, and he had a bunch of patrons where he'd do work for him and things like that, and he'd make money. But all of his artist friends weren't making that much money, so he'd always borrow all his money out to his friends, and they'd never pay him back, so he never had much money. But he just kept doing artwork, and it is just comical to read about him. I mean, one time in the book, if I'm not sure exactly how it went, but a collector came, and it was wintertime or something like that, and it was cold in his apartment. So he started taking his paintings that were on panels and breaking them in half and throwing them in the fire. And the collector's like, "No, don't." So it just showed, how poor he was at times, but he never gave up. He just kept working at it and working at it, and eventually, by the time I think he was probably around 70, he was fairly successful. But up until that point, you just had struggles.
Struggles like we all have, but
Mhm.
it's just a matter of, pushing through. But don't throw your paintings in the fire.
Yeah,
Find something else.
yeah, exactly. So
Oh,
I
man.
guess you probably didn't have anything else, and you can't burn your clothes, so.
It's true, man. Jacob, this has been awesome, but it is time for our final push. And this is where I ask you to reach to the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today that's thinking, maybe I can do this too, or, something's missing in my work. Maybe it's time to figure out what it is. And just give them your best advice and push them to do it.
I would say just never give up. The amount of time you put into something is the amount of time you're going to get out of it. I work with
Mm,
students that have never painted before, and within one semester, some of their work is gallery work. So, I mean, and they put in lots of time and things like that. So I just think, the biggest thing is if you put in enough time, you're gonna get something out of it.
absolutely. Just put in the time, put in the work, put in the effort, and see what happens.
Yeah, and definitely do the workshops if you can. If you can't go back to school, there's workshops, just couple-day workshops. You can always, if you're intermediate level, you can start teaching. You learn from your students. Just stay in that art scene.
Just get involved and keep doing it. Jacob, thank you for teaching us today and for giving us that push.
Okay, thanks a lot, young man.
Of course. And you can find Jacob on his website at jacobdhein.com. That's JACOBDHEIN.com. And on Facebook and Instagram, he is Jacob Dhein. And of course, you can head to the show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/Jacob Dhein to find all the links to all the resources we talked about today. Jacob, thanks again, brother.
All right, thanks a lot.
I love that guy. Thank you, Jacob, for coming on the show. He brings up a really good point about learning and teaching. If you're at an advanced level or an intermediate level and you haven't thought about teaching before, maybe consider it. Teaching is a really important part of learning. It's a cyclical thing. You learn, you teach, you learn, you teach. And like Jacob said, sometimes he is surprised by the things that he learns from the people that are approaching painting with a fresh set of eyes. And another really important lesson is the value of workshops. You don't have to go back to college. You don't have to get an advanced degree in something. You could just take a class. You could just take a workshop and just brush up on your skills or learn a few new things or a lot of new things, depending on what type of workshop it is. But doing that kind of a thing is awesome for some people because sometimes that's what it takes. It takes, investing money into a course or your time into a course. Getting small assignments is sometimes really helpful, or just having somebody that you can talk to one-on-one as you learn these new skills that can give you individual help. There's a lot to be said for that. The internet is great to learn things, but sometimes that one-to-one interaction is where the magic really is. But that is all I've got for you today. Hopefully, you are inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. We will be here for you on Friday if you need the push again. But until then, be output machines, people. Go and get all of those ideas in your head out on paper, out on your computer, whatever it is. Just go and do it. That's the whole reason that you've been listening. So go and turn the podcast off, turn the phone off, turn the internet off, and go and get some really awesome work done. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in a couple days if you need the push again. Have a great day, everybody.